They must have got a bit of gold out of there because there's an old mine door there. They normally don't have mine doors on them, you know, but this one must have been quite profitable back in its day. And we'll start checking some of these quartz veins, all these reefs up and around here.
From mining over 1,000 ounces of gold to coming across an old forgotten mine filled with gold beyond his wildest dreams, this is how Parker Schnabel discovered a long-lost ancient gold mine. Parker Schnabel and his team had just stumbled upon something incredible, an old mine filled with untouched gold. It had been left behind in a rush, the treasure sitting there for years, just waiting to be taken by someone curious enough to look. Excited by their discovery, they wasted no time. They worked fast, pulling out gold at an unbelievable speed. But the deeper they went, the more they felt something was off. Strange tools, unfamiliar markings, and eerie signs started appearing. It was as if someone long ago had left behind a message: "Do not dig here." But Parker wasn't one to walk away from a gold mine. He ignored the warnings and kept digging. The deeper they went, the more unsettling things became. Then they found it. Something that changed everything. The forgotten mine. At first glance, it seemed like the ultimate jackpot. Thick veins of gold lined the rock walls, shining even in the dim light. There were no signs of old-school mining tools, no mercury contamination, just pure, raw gold waiting to be taken. Parker claimed every last bit without hesitation. But gold always comes at a price. What they uncovered wasn't just treasure. It was a mystery wrapped in danger. It reminded Parker of a story his grandfather once told him. One day, his grandpa had an unbelievable gold haul, 42 ounces in a single day. But 4 hours later, everything changed. As the dust settled, a strange sound rose from the ground. It wasn't just a mine, it was something much more. Parker's team had no permafrost to deal with, no million-dollar machines burning fuel, just them, the mine, and a growing sense of unease. They thought they were just digging for gold. Instead, they had uncovered something that was never meant to be found. Wait, there's more. Unlike other mining operations they had been through, this one was just simple, efficient digging with massive rewards. In just a few hours, they had pulled over 100 grams of gold. It felt almost like stealing from history itself. And something about it felt off. The more they dug, the more questions arose. Who had left this mine behind? And why had no one ever come back? If it was as good as it seemed, then where was everyone? Just as they reached what should have been the most lucrative part, they found something they weren't prepared for. Evidence that they weren't the first to uncover these riches. And those who came before had left in a hurry. While things were looking good for Parker, the same couldn't be said for everyone. Another miner in the area had been working tirelessly, desperate to hit bedrock. He had poured everything he had into a single hole, a hole that kept swallowing money faster than it gave back gold. It was a high-stakes gamble, the kind Parker knew all too well. He watched closely, knowing how easily fortunes could flip from riches to ruin. But here's the kicker. When Parker's team went to clear the site, they realized this wasn't just an abandoned mine. It was a time capsule, frozen in history. The rock formations didn't match modern geological maps. On top of that, the tools they found were too advanced for the time period, and something had been left behind, something more valuable than gold. If they could pull 5 or 6 kilos of gold in one haul, they'd be set. But this was never just about the money. It was about the chase, the thrill of knowing something massive was just within reach. Further downstream, men spent millions trying to strike gold, scooping dirt off the riverbanks like it was easy. But every scoop was either a step toward fortune or a reminder of how quickly things could go wrong. Parker had been in tight spots before, but this mine had a strange energy. It whispered of past miners who had tried and failed. Yet, despite the warnings, Parker's instincts told him to keep going. To him and his team, this felt like the ideal gold mine they had wanted all along. Since they weren't sure why anyone would leave such a rich place in a hurry, the best thing they could do was mine as much as possible while figuring out the rest. However, the ground became more unstable the deeper they dug, and then they realized something had been waiting beneath the surface for centuries. A big win. And then they hit bedrock, the final layer before either striking it rich or walking away empty-handed. And there it was. Gold. More than they had expected. More than anyone in the area had found in decades. But the real discovery wasn't just the gold. It was what they found alongside it: artifacts, markings, signs that didn't belong to any known mining operation. Someone had been here before them, long before modern miners had ever set foot on this land. And they had left behind a secret, one Parker wasn't sure he wanted to uncover. With riches in hand, Parker had a choice to make: take the gold and walk away, or keep digging. Keep risking, chase something even bigger. He had spent his whole life mining, but some treasures aren't meant to be found. Some discoveries rewrite history, and some mines. They're abandoned for a reason. Following this discovery, tensions grew among the crew. Some wanted to report the find immediately, to hand it over to historians and archaeologists who could properly document what they had uncovered. Others wanted to keep going, to dig deeper, to see how far the mystery went, to extract every bit of wealth and knowledge this place had to offer, make the most of it as miners. Torn between the thrill of discovery and the weight of responsibility, Parker had to make a decision, and make it fast. Time was not on their side. Don't get too greedy. The ancient supports holding up the tunnels were never meant to withstand the pressures of modern excavation. Dust filled the air as part of the wall gave way, and then, in an instant, a section of the mine collapsed. Their path was sealed off, forcing them to rethink everything. This was more than just a battle against rock and dirt. They were fighting time itself, against the very earth that had hidden its secrets for centuries. By now, Parker wasn't even sure if they were digging for gold or for answers. His crew, exhausted and on edge, kept working, each of them realizing they were part of something much bigger than they had ever imagined. Yet in the back of everyone's mind, one question lingered. Were they truly prepared for what they were about to uncover? Days turned into weeks. Every ounce of gold they pulled from the mine was a reminder of how much was at stake. The artifacts they uncovered were carefully documented but never fully understood, raising more questions than they answered. And then, just when they were about to wrap up, they hit something completely unexpected: a hidden chamber, sealed off from the rest of the mine, untouched, undisturbed, waiting. What they found inside changed everything. This was no ordinary gold mine. This was something ancient, something lost to time. And in that moment, Parker knew he had a choice: take the gold he had obtained and leave a rich man, or step into the unknown and uncover the truth buried beneath the surface, and risk his life, and that of his crew. At this point, mining wasn't just about gold anymore. It was about discovery, about survival, about history itself. Yet, this wouldn't be the first time Parker was making history. Back in the early days, holding a claim in the gold rush was a battle of its own. Parker and his crew came into the mining scene with more enthusiasm than experience. Their first season was brutal. They barely scraped together 15 ounces of gold, not even close to the big payday they had dreamed of. Bad luck, no experience, and a harsh dose of reality nearly broke them. But instead of quitting, they doubled down, risking everything for another shot. Their journey to becoming legendary miners wasn't easy. Just when they thought they were finally getting the hang of it, they lost their claim. But instead of licking their wounds, they hustled at Quartz Creek. They clawed out nearly 100 ounces of gold, proof that they weren't done yet. A teenager's mining partnership was making big moves, showing off to the veterans he wasn't just some kid playing in the dirt anymore. The Hoffmans weren't messing around either, pulling in over 800 ounces, a huge jump from their rookie year. But for Parker, it wasn't just about luck anymore. It was about strategy, grit, and knowing when to take risks. The competition heated up, pushing everyone to take bolder steps. Parker, no longer content with playing it safe, aimed higher and hauled in over 1,000 ounces, making a clear statement. Todd Hoffman and his crew had their best season yet, but their numbers were starting to look small compared to Parker's rise. The pressure to perform was growing, and the rivalry had shifted from friendly competition to a serious battle. Parker shattered expectations with over 2,500 ounces. The Hoffmans, refusing to be left behind, brought in nearly 1,400 ounces. However, as talented as Parker was, he did have some bad days. The bad days. It was 9 weeks into the season, and he had started big by investing $2.5 million on a promising haul, only to end up with just over $1 million worth of gold. Knowing that he was running out of time, Parker decided to do something he'd never done before: run 3 wash plants simultaneously. With more ground to cover, he sent a third wash plant and an additional crew to the Indian River. with the hopes of scoring over $2.5 million in just 3 weeks. After hearing Parker's plan, Mitch Blaschke shared the same enthusiasm and hope of making it big in the shortest time possible by running multiple wash plants at once. To him, each wash plant would manage to get a good amount of gold each week, and when they combined all the gold from the 3 plants, it would add up to a lot of money. At least, that's what they thought. As exciting as this was, Parker understood that they had to do the work. Running 3 wash plants meant the potential of getting more gold, yes, but it also meant more pressure for the staff and more headaches for Parker. As hard as it would be, it was the only way, and they had to pay the price. At Dominion Creek, Parker already had wash plant Roxanne running, processing pay dirt from the long cut. A mile and a half from there was Big Red, churning through the top gravels in the bridge cut. The only thing that remained was firing up a 45-ton shaker deck called Bob. From his Dominion yard, they had to move it 12 miles down narrow, winding dirt tracks, through a 25-foot-wide creek, to its home on Ken and Stewart's ground. But this was no easy task. To help transport the wash plant, Tyson Lee brought in his mentor and haulage expert, Mike Tupper. The first step was to load the wash plant onto a carrier and balance it properly, since the trip to the destination would be a bumpy one. And this was no easy job. After loading it up, the easiest part was done, and now it was time for the hard part, surviving the harsh route to the destination and getting the wash plant there in one piece. Things were going well, and after crossing a river, the pilot truck was proving to be effective. After arriving at the destination, the plan was simple: set everything up before dark, since they wanted to utilize every minute to sluice as much gold as they could. In this mining industry, a day can mean making millions or losing millions. And so, they began setting it up. The only thing remaining to begin the operation now was the push of a button. With Brennan ready to start feeding pay dirt to the wash plant, Bob was activated, and the sluicing began. By now, Parker and his crew had 3 wash plants running. To them, this increased the odds of meeting their 10,000-ounce goal that year. And although time was running out, the team did their best and got 3 thermoses of gold, 1 thermos for each wash plant. After weighing the first thermos from Big Red, the crew obtained 58.85 ounces, worth around $147,000. That was no good for Parker. The next thermos to be weighed was from Roxanne. They had managed to obtain 185.65 ounces, worth $464,000. Lastly, they measured the returns of the new guy, Bob, set up to get Parker's season back on track. The wash plant was expected to bring in over 300 ounces per week. However, Bob only managed a quarter of its runtime. To Parker's disappointment, after weighing the gold, they got 58.45 ounces, worth $146,000. These returns really angered Parker. He was making that much with just 1 wash plant in the previous seasons. From mining over 1,000 ounces of gold to coming across an old forgotten mine filled with gold beyond his wildest dreams, this is how Parker Schnabel discovered a long-lost ancient gold mine.